Martin, let's go to some of the juicy and scandalous part of your research, the academic dishonesty as well. So this is a really interesting area of research. How do achievement goals and the different achievement goals that one might have relate to academic dishonesty among students?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we talked about the different correlates that you find for achievement goals, and we talked about learning strategies, and that's one thing. But we also have academic dishonesty, and you could see how it is related theoretically. If you look at mastery goals, if I cheat and I have a mastery goal, I'm missing out on a learning opportunity. So mastery goals should go along with less academic dishonesty. Work avoidance goals, on the other hand, if I want to get through the day with little effort, oh, well, then, cheating is helpful because I don't have to do all of the work by myself, but I can find a shortcut. And performance goals, you would think that they should go along with increased academic dishonesty because, again, the performance evaluation is not just based on my own competence, but I'm getting a competitive advantage by, I copied someone else's answers, someone that I didn't know by myself. So now I have an advantage. So you would think that performance goals go along with increased academic dishonesty. And we just did a recent meta-analysis on that. And we find exactly what I talked about for mastery and for work avoidance goals. But for performance goals, we do not find this effect. Sometimes we find that performance goals go along with increased academic dishonesty. Sometimes we do not. So this is something that I'm very curious in. When do these strong performance goals give rise to these detrimental processes, in this case, in terms of academic dishonesty? And we managed to identify a series of contextual features that we can look at and that explain why sometimes these performance goals give rise to more academic dishonesty, but sometimes they do not have the same unfavorable outcomes. And I think this is very, very important in terms of research because we already talked about the realities in education. And the realities are that we cannot simply say, well, let's just all focus on mastery. Let's get rid of the performance thing. And then we also dealt with the issue of academic dishonesty. This will not be a viable way, but performance concerns will be around. But what we can do is to help students not cheat despite having these strong performance concerns. And, like one aspect, for instance, is that we change how the grading is being done. So we found in research that really helps to focus on the process and not so much the result. So if we evaluate the strategies that people use to answer a certain question, if we look at the process and not just the result, then this leads to performance goals going along with less academic dishonesty. So, well, I can give you an example of the type of research that we
Please.
did. So we invited students and we said, well, we've developed this novel academic attitude, this novel academic test, and we want to see, how well this test works. And the students were coming in, and then half of the students we taught, well, right now it really matters that, it should be done under authentic circumstances. So it really matters that you strive after high performance. You should do your best job and really try to impress us because this is what the test is about. And the other half of the students weren't told that. And what we found then, we asked them about their goals right afterwards. What we found is that we managed to manipulate the performance goals. So half of the students had high performance goals. The other had, regular levels of performance goals. So that was the starting point. But once the students began on working on their tasks, then the examiner received an important phone call. It was very urgent, and they had to leave the room. And we set up the room in a way that the students would always see the examiner coming back. So they were unobserved, seemingly, and they had opportunities to cheat because once the examiner left, he forgot the sheet with the correct solutions on his desks, and all of the students saw that.
Nice. Yeah.
And then we can, change various ways. One thing that we changed is whether one fellow student, a Confederate student, looked at these solutions or not. So there we try to manipulate some social norm. And the other thing that we manipulate is how did we tell the students that the performance would get evaluated, whether it's, the strategies that they're using or solely whether they got, the answers correct or not. So that's the second factor then. And what we find typically in these settings is that, what would you think? How many students cheat in such a situation?
Well, look, I've read this study with both of these studies with Stefan Junke, I think is
Yankee.
how you say it.
Yeah.
Junke, yeah, yeah. So I know what happens, but
Okay.
yeah. So my understanding is that those in the where they see someone else cheat and who are on the focus is on the outcome rather than the process. Those are the ones who are more likely to cheat themselves. Yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly. That's what we find. You're very well prepared. You don't need me for the podcast, I see that. But what we found is that about 1 in 3 students cheats, first of all. And that is 1 in 3 students in both the control condition, where they don't have any performance goals and where no one else is cheating. But it's also about 1 out of 3 students where we only have the performance goals and not any of the other things. But it's also one
Okay.
out of 3 students where we do not have performance goals, but let's say the social norm that others are cheating as well, or that the result is being evaluated and not the process. But only if both come
Mhm.
together, high performance goals and putting
Mhm.
emphasis on evaluating the results or having other
Mhm.
students there that you might think cheat as well. Only if these things come together, then it's about 2 in 3 people cheating. So it's almost
Mhm.
doubling the cheating rate in this situation. Um,
Mhm.
so through such experiments, we found
Yeah.
out that we can change the surrounding context in order to
Yeah.
alleviate these detrimental effects that performance goals can have.
And this seems to come back to what you were saying earlier, Martin, about okay, in an academic environment, there's always going to be performance requirements around students come to exam time. But if in before that, if in the gaps between those, you instill more of a mastery oriented climate and have things focus more on the process rather than social comparisons of outcomes, of exam marks, that you're going to create less of an environment than the environment that you had in the experiments where it was more likely to influence cheating behaviors.
Yes, yes, yes. And also, if we get the environment just right, then we can try to avoid these negative processes given rise by the personal motivations that the students might hold by themselves already. So the environment is not only helpful to mitigate academic dishonesty, but also to nuance the effects that the personal motivations might have.